Welcome and good evening to the next edition of the Erhard Busek Ambassador Talks. We are very excited for a wonderful evening conversation. But to kick us off, I will hand over to member of the IDM board, Klaus Wölper, to say a few words of welcome and set the stage. Klaus, please.
Excellency, friends. Welcome here at the IDM, Institute für Donnauraum und Mitteleuropa, Danube Basin and Central Europe. I'm Klaus Wölfer, former Austrian diplomat, member of the board of the Institute. I've known former Yugoslavia in the old days when it was still Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, and have always had an interest in the region, people. And I'm happy here to introduce to you and to open this talk with the ambassador of Montenegro, Madame Stanica Anđić, who has been here for a year or so now, quite familiarized with Austria, to give us some ideas. You are here in a free setting. There will be question and answer. The director of the Institute, Sebastian Schäffer, who has been in charge here for the last 9 years.
Seven-ish.
Seven. He will sort of lead the conversation with the ambassador. But I think the idea is to, in the spirit of the Erhard Busek talks, to engage in conversation, to ask questions, to ask the burning questions, the hidden questions. There's a lot under the surface. The issues are very important for the fate of Europe. Montenegro may be a smaller state, but it is in a way exemplary for the further development of the European Union, the way it will go or not go, or develop, or come to terms with things. So at this stage, I stop here. Only maybe to say a few words about the ambassador. Not only has she been here for some time, but she's an experienced diplomat, has been engaged a lot in United Nations issues, development goals, the Sustainable Development Goals and other things. You are also accredited with the United Nations here in Vienna.
Only bilateral.
Only bilateral. Oh, you have a package
But
with you?
background, yes, yes.
But you leave the other ambassador to
Yes.
do his job. Very good. You were born in the north, if I'm
Yes.
not right, north of Montenegro, and studied in Podgorica, in the capital, political sciences, and then working also abroad and in the capital. So she's Sebastian Schäffer, leader of this institution. So I'm looking forward to a good and interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So the Erhard Busek Ambassador Talk is the longest standing series that we have done with partners throughout the decades, and we are very happy that for this event we are partnering up with the Embassy of Montenegro in the Republic of Austria, but also do this together with the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. So thank you very much for partnering up with us. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us, for agreeing to doing this Ambassador's Talk. It's a pleasure to have you, and I think it's a very timely debate, because we'll come to it. I think 2026 will be a decisive year, not only for Montenegro, but I think for our region, or I might even say for the continent as a whole. But before I take too much away from the introduction, I will give the floor to you to say some few words about the position of the country at the moment, where it is standing, and then we dive into the dialogue.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for these kind words. And I want to thank Klaus also for his kind words and for introducing me. Yes, you're right. This is very timely to talk about this topic, because for Montenegro, this year is really one of the crucial years, because yes, we are doing this negotiation process for, more than a decade. It's one of the longest negotiation processes, but still If you compare to the whole process, these last years are actually when we did the most and when we are made the biggest progress and we are moving fast forward. We are using this catchy phrase, front runner. It's kind of stuck to Montenegro, but it is actually. We are, at this moment, we are running fast and we expect that in this 26, we will close all the negotiating chapters. And then we have this motto, which we really find realistic, to be 28 member states by 2028. Just a brief overview of dynamics where we are standing at the moment, and then, as you said, we can maybe go to other topics. It's Montenegro open all the negotiating chapters, provisionally open. Now we close 12, and we are really moving forward very fast. We expect during this presidency to close more. What we expect from Cyprus, what they actually promised, that they will organize intergovernmental conferences to close more chapters every time when the chapters are actually ready, which is a very good sign because then we don't have to wait. And by the end of the year, all the others. Yes, it seems very, it's a lot of work ahead of us, but it's doable. And why Montenegro in this moment is so important, as Klaus already kicked off the topic that we can dive in later. But because we are always advocating for this merit-based approach. And based on these merits, if we are looking forward, Montenegro is a good example also for the region, because if you really assess the process based on merits, and if you accept Montenegro by the end of this year, it means that all the others will have this perception of the process. And what is the advantage of Montenegro, aside from this enlargement, let's say, steps that we are doing, Montenegro is NATO member state. Montenegro is a country which is a safe investment destination. Montenegro is a country that has stable economy. Montenegro is a country with stable political situation. And also Montenegro is a country that is using euro, which is also one of the maybe important things to mention this. So I will stop here with just, and what is important to say in this first introductory remarks, Montenegro is a country where you still have, even after this many years of negotiation, you still have majority of people in favor of joining EU, more than 83%, which is something that we have to use. We have to use the momentum, we have to use this support. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. We will have a lot of topics that you have mentioned that we will dive a bit deeper into. Avid followers of our format know that we also open the floor to the guests in the room, but also if they join us in our Zoom webinar. So if you have questions later on, you will get the opportunity. You can think of them already while we start. And here I would use the title of our talk to ask the first question, because the title is New Member, New Opportunities. And I would focus on the opportunities in the beginning and ask the question, what excites you most about what Montenegro will bring to the European Union by 2028?
Yeah, well, by 2028, after 2028. But still, joke aside, I read recently the newest Eurobarometer polls, and one of the topics that really is very important to European citizens is security. In this moment, security is a top priority. And Montenegro is a NATO country. It's always important to mention that Montenegro is already a pillar of stability and security in the region. Becoming a member state of NATO means that we already had a accession process, and that we already had to fulfill many criteria that are already preconditioned for EU. So security in this regard is one of the things that we can bring also to the European Union, and also being a southern border, which is very important for the whole Union, is something that I think is really relevant in this moment. Stability. Montenegro is, as you probably know, very small, but still composed on many different ethnic groups that live in, there is no majority, like big majority ethnic group in Montenegro, and all the ethnic groups lives there. We are very proud of our multiculturalism and multi-confessionalism, and for years, when the Balkan was going through many instabilities, Montenegro was one of the countries that never was pulled in these instabilities, but we actually showed political and social maturity in this regard. Also, yes, we are a small market, but still we can be interested as an economic partner to our economic to our European economy, because European Union is already one of the biggest, well, not one, but the biggest investor in the region, and also very focused on EU, but it's not promoted maybe always the best way, because sometimes there is a perception that some other actors invest more or they're more present, but actually EU is very interested in the region, interested in Montenegro, so we can bring safe investment environment, small, but still. And one of the things that we always mention as an important, let's say, factor is once you have at least one new member state, it will be a good message for the region, but also that will show that enlargement process is alive, that the most successful policy of the EU, which is enlargement, gives result. It's tangible, it's doable, we can do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually the longest period of non-enlargement since enlargement started
Yes.
in 71. So it's about time that we find some success story. Very, very interesting points that you brought up. I will take up some other points. We'll come back to NATO, also looking into the audience. I see that there will definitely be some NATO-related question and or comments. But I want to pick up on what you mentioned about the euro. That Montenegro already uses the euro.
Yeah.
On the one hand, maybe you can briefly also enlighten us why this is the case, because it's a quite unique situation. But much more, I'm interested in how this shaped the economic readiness and what this tells us what kind of member Montenegro.
Yeah. Yes, you are right. It's a unique situation, a bit unusual, but also the circumstances when it happened were unusual. In that time, we were part of, as you know, different political structure. Yugoslavia was still a country in that time. Well, we were using one currency that was joined for the state. Then in one moment we started using Deutschmark with approval actually of Deutschland, actually Germany in that time, because we wanted to, let's say, we were already on our way towards independence, just it was a gradual process. So that was one of the steps to be less dependent on that other currency. And then in the moment when we were using Deutschmark, when Germany actually stopped using it, we had to use the same currency. And it was agreement, of course, with Germany and with the EU. But yes, the circumstances are a bit different from other countries. So we are now, but it was actually a booster in that time for our economy on our way towards regaining our independence. And after that, our economy is fully, well, what would be English word, but turned to Euro economy, let's say. And now, since recently, since October last year, we are part of this unique, this common payment market. We are part of the SEPA system. So transactions with the EU and in euro are even are even easier and with less taxes. So yeah, we are in that case, I think, partner of the EU that is much closer in this economic sense that maybe some others also for this reason.
Well, it really shows that Montenegro is a front runner.
Yeah,
in many ways.
in many ways, yes, that's true.
The 13 chapters closed, and I admire the persistence over this long period of time. I still remember there was must have been back in 2008, 2009, where there was I was doing interviews in the European Commission, and they described it as so the basic question was, who will be the next member? Will it be Serbia or will it be Montenegro? And someone described it as a race like the tortoise and the hare. So slow and steady brought you actually to the front. Nevertheless, if we look at the other side, like the receiving side, the hopefully welcoming side of the European Union, so far the longest negotiation, not from applying for membership until becoming a membership, but only the negotiation process. The longest negotiation process was 77 months. That was with, does anybody know? I've asked that question before in such a setting. It's Portugal. With Portugal. When Montenegro joins, there will be a new record which doubles that amount, which is really something that maybe tells us how this enlargement and accession process has evolved. And does this length of negotiations, in your opinion, also matter if the outcome is a well-prepared member state?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, but outcomes always matter because that is our goal. We are heading there. We want to become a member. So outcomes is what is matter. But yes, also the process. It was very long process, and we now have a new enthusiasm and new energy because we are seeing in this moment that our goal is reachable. But in this point, I would like to really point out that any prolongation of this process any longer from where we are would have different effects, would have very negative consequences, not only for the EU, but not only for the region, but for the EU or vice versa. It doesn't matter because both ways, I think the consequences would be, well, long-term consequences. Because yes, we had a long process of negotiation, but also we went through different geopolitical circumstances, environment. Now we are facing something completely new. EU is reshaping its security policy. We, as a new, well, hopefully new member state also, we can bring new impetus also to countries within the EU. Yes, we are small, but we can bring some new blood, let's say. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, the outcome is what matters because we are going there. But we cannot neglect that any prolongation of this process would be derogative for the process itself. And if we lose this momentum now, not us as a new potential member state and candidate, but this is momentum also for the EU. We should not neglect that this is also important for the EU to show that its own policy, that everybody is in favor, but yes, it gives results. Otherwise, we have to face altogether with consequences of these decisions.
So you would believe that this, you mentioned that 80+% that are in favor of joining the European Union, that would have a significant impact on that number if the 2028 goal is not reached. So is there in the population some sort of expectation that this 28 by 28 is achieved?
There is expectation in population that the goal is achieved.
Yeah.
It was there was expectation not only for this year, but as you know, this was a moving target for many countries of the Western Balkans, including Montenegro. So I remember when we were mentioning that 2015 is the year, then 2020, and this was a moving target. But surprisingly, maybe for some, we in Montenegro are still very enthusiastic about this, and the general population is still above 80%, which we want to keep that way. And it's more, it's actually biggest number than in some EU member states. So yes, but to answer your question, any prolongation of this process will cause fatigue also among population. And we see that in the region, in our neighboring countries, you see the drop of support for different reasons, because we are not in the same, let's say we are not in the same level of preparedness, but still, these people also had expectations and they expected to move forward, at least in one moment. So we don't want to risk losing this very broad support public, broad support in the parliament, broad support also what we hear from our partners within the EU, because Montenegro is one of the countries from the region that was never mentioned in any negative connotation, because we are small in size. We cannot make a big impact to the market of the EU once we are in. We cannot make a big demographic changes within the EU, but we can still bring some new energy, and we can bring a new investment environment. We can bring some positive impacts to the EU. These things that I mentioned are those that skeptical EU member states are sometimes mentioned as like causing fear. What if the new member state come, but we have to change internal politics when it comes to agriculture, but Montenegro will not make this impact. So we are maybe not the right way, but still easy absorbable. And our administration is small, but still easy to handle and easy to adjust to this. And it's actually sort with two sides, because yes, we have small administration, which is easy to adapt. But then if you have small administration, it is a challenge to follow all the steps that are ahead of you. And advantage, and actually something that is commendable in this moment, is with this small administration, we are still making visible and tangible results. And progress is visible in this moment. And also the last report of the European Commission, which was the best actually best of all the reports for Montenegro, but also comparing to other countries, shows that it's not just words, but we really have results.
And the stability that you mentioned that you're looking forward to. I'll have one more question before I then open for a first round of audience questions. Well, when we talk about security, and you said like this is something that is important, and finally on top of the agenda, not only at the Eurobarometer, but I have the feeling also in Brussels.
Yeah.
But there's of course also the situation that currently a very big challenge to the overall security architecture of Europe is happening with the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation. One of the things that we have heard before the Munich Security Conference was an idea that was floated that there should be a rapid accession of Ukraine as part of the possible peace negotiations to provide security guarantees, which then would put them under Article 42.7. If we look at that, I mean, let's not discuss how viable it is, because there are several challenges to that. But I'm rather interested in the question, like if you and also the Montenegrin population hears this, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for supporting Ukraine. I think this is a well-known fact, but because I also see the challenge that if it's that, look, there's a full-scale invasion and that accelerates accession, that would even bring it into the European Union by 2027, which was floated via Politico last week, which would be ahead of the Montenegro date. Is that something where this would, is such a discussion having an impact and saying, like, we have been negotiating so long and then these ideas are being discussed? Or is there an awareness that each country's path has different circumstances?
Yeah, this is the topic that came up recently. We are so aware that these discussions are, I mean, I'm not sure that even there is discussion on the topic, but more like something that is in the air, let's say. But in what I want to say, when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to any fast track, let's say, we have our own path, and we have our own expectation when it comes to our own assessment. We think that the merit-based approach is the only approach that should be that should guide this process, because once you do a precedent, there is no going back, because then we risk to lose the credibility. I mean, the EU will risk to lose credibility among those countries that were negotiating for such a long time, and then if they're paired, coupled, whatever, with other countries, I don't think that it would at the end be an idea, and that would be actually an official proposal. But in any case, our position is that merit-based approach is something that is crucial. And if Ukraine is ready by that date, they have their own, let's say, dynamics to follow. So the only thing that should not be put in the same, let's say, basket is like, you are going if the other country is going, or you should go together. That's something that, but I don't think that it will be even a scenario that we will face at the end of this year. So.
Very brief follow-up, because you mentioned now many times that merit-based process. Would you say that if a lesson out of a hopefully successful membership of Montenegro would show that there might be a necessary change in the overall accession process, is that something that you would think that the EU should consider? Or do you think that the current process needs to be applied to each and every candidate country?
Well, you know, Montenegro, from the beginning of its negotiations until now, was faced with changing the game during the game. So I would not be very exclusive and saying yes or no to this question of yours. But you know that during the process, our own methodology that we follow was changed in 2019, right? 1919. So, and the rules that we are following now during the process of negotiations are much more strict than during the previous cycles. And that's what I said at the beginning. We are facing with different realities, and every cycle of enlargement is happening in different geopolitical circumstances that also, in a way, navigate how the EU is conducting this process. So I don't think that it's important to say, yes, you have to follow exactly the same steps, but then still there are some steps that should be followed and some criteria that should be fulfilled. And that when we say merit-based, yes, some results should be based really on merits and what you actually delivered, because otherwise, yeah, it's a wrong message to all of us.
Thank you. Good. So this is the first opportunity to ask a question. If there are a couple. Please. You've seen that, and thank you very much. We've gotten concise and very interesting answers. So keep your questions short and simple, so we keep the conversation going. Yeah, please, 1, 2, and then 3. Can you briefly introduce yourself? I know who you are, but not maybe everyone. Yeah.
So my name is Jun Saito, doctoral student of the University of Vienna, writing thesis about Austrian security policy on the Western Balkans. Therefore, okay, I have 2 questions. So first, I want to join your first question. So, what can Montenegro as a new EU member states bring into EU enlargement policy, especially for EU enlargement to your fellow countries or fellow candidates on the Western Balkans? Or what kind of advice would you give as a government of Western Balkans, like Bosnia and Herzegovina or Serbia? And the second question is about security. So how would Montenegro as new member states contribute to enhancing EU defense as the European pillar of the NATO? Thank you very much.
I think we
Go one by
answered
one.
it. Yeah.
So
Almost 2 questions.
yeah, so when it comes to what if I understood well, what actually Montenegro bring to the enlargement policy and how it would reflect to other countries of the region of the Western Balkans. The acceptance, or actually if we become member states as planned by the 2028 or very recent future, it would be a very good signal to our neighbors. Our neighbors in this moment are in different stages of their own preparedness. They are having different circumstances internally, or they're just having different stages of where they are with a process. But what we are also saying from our own address, but it is also said from the Brussels and from this country, actually, Austria is one of the greatest supporters of the enlargement policy and one of the greatest friends of Western Balkan when it comes to the enlargement. It would have, that's my opinion, a spillover effect also to our neighbors. When you have one state in your neighborhood, and in this case we would have more than one because we have Croatia, we have Hungary, we are surrounded, the whole region is surrounded by EU countries, but having one of us being a member state would mean to our neighbors that they can become member states soon if they follow the criteria, if they follow the rules, and if they follow the steps that should be fulfilled. And to come to your second question about the security and how can we contribute, we are already a NATO member state. So when we are talking about the enlargement and when we are talking about becoming EU member states, we cannot neglect the fact that we are already part of this, not European, but structures that are even broader than Europe, that have their own internal criteria, that to become part of this club, you have to be, you have to prove that you're stable, that you are, that you can provide security, that you can provide resilience to many threats. So it would be actually one more benefit to the EU, because that would be a southern border that it's already secured, if you're talking about security of the European Union. So
there's significant investment in the military, the naval forces especially, So there is.
Yeah, I mean, we are following the NATO rules, and when it comes to the budget, when it comes to the investment of the security pillar. So yes, it's an advantage in any case, I think, for the EU.
Thank you. Gudrun Steinacker.
Yes, thank you very much. We know each other, and Ambassador.
That the audience nevertheless know.
Yes, Susan, I'm a former German diplomat, and I was also an ambassador in Montenegro, so I know the country well, I know the language, and I'm still very involved in a very particular and also very important field for the accession, and that is environment and nature conservation. I have a good news because we have been fighting very long for former salt pans in the municipality of Ulcin at the border or at the coast, which is of highest ecological importance because of its biodiversity, particularly birds. And it is formally protected. It has been formally protected since 2019. And now, after 6 years, the municipality and the government agreed on a joint management, which is the precondition for getting EU funds and for reconstructing it. But nevertheless, in this field, this chapter, and just to say, the protection of the Salina is one of the benchmarks for the EU accession. So it has to be implemented. But nevertheless, I am still a little bit worried because there are still many gaps in this field, which is more or less covered by Chapter 27 of the EU Acquis. It's one of the most complicated chapters because it demands real changes, reforms, waste management, wastewater management, national parks. I do not want to prolong this. And you can read it yourself in the internet. And there I see still many gaps. And I'm also worried because of some developments and NGOs with which I'm in a permanent contact inform me almost on a daily basis. And that is the agreements with the United Arab Emirates. And as far as I know, today in the parliament, there is a debate about it. And there is a provision in Article 5 which would exempt investments from the United Arab from all EU regulation preconditions. I can give you the article if you wish. And that is very worrying. And also many NGOs consider this to be very worrying. That not even before the accession, there will be, and we talk about huge amounts of money. And we know that some of the developments in Montenegro, in the tourism, and not only at the coast, in particular at the coast, and but also in the mountains, are not going into the right direction, and certainly contradict the condition of the provision in the constitution that Montenegro is an ecological state. So that is in the constitution.
Is there a question in there?
I want to ask you. Do you know, do you have information how Montenegro will continue to implement Chapter 27 and what to do about this agreement with the United Arab Emirates, which I'm really very concerned about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. As you said, Chapter 27, yes, it's one of the most challenging chapters because it requires very comprehensive reform. It's not just one thing, it's a scope of things that should bring us closer to the EU standards. And it's one of the chapters that is actually most expensive chapter. Nothing can be done overnight. And this specific chapter is something that requires all society approach. And we are aware of the challenges. We are aware that it cannot, it's not an easy task. But the position of the government is that we are now investing. I will not go into details through the project, but many things were already put in motion when it comes to the waste management. But when it comes to, we also have this thermal plant, which is one of the sources of our electric energy. that should be also adjusted
Yeah.
to the,
Definitely.
so even if,
Definitely.
when we talk about pollution, when we talk about waste management, when we talk about other segments, but actually these are the fields where we now intensify our activities when it comes to the investment and inviting investors also from here, from Austria, to help us also together with our own companies to work more diligently and to work faster. But for this chapter, there is also a transition period after the end of this year. So it's something that cannot be done overnight, but it is something that has to be done before we become. So it's not something that we can put aside, that we can neglect or ignore. It's just something that we have to work even harder to get to this goal. And when it comes to the discussion in the parliament, I mean, I don't know what's going to be the outcome actually of the discussion on that you mentioned, but from what was discussed before, and this agreement with the Emirates was something that was actually in public discussed from different angles. But actually, you know that last year we closed the chapter 5, which refers to the public procurement, and to do anything, we have to follow EU regulation, and also with this country. So we will not do anything that would not be that will not coincide with EU regulation in this regard. That's the official stance of the government, and that's something that.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Ambassador. My name is Günther Fellinger, the chairman of the Austrian Committee for NATO Enlargement for Ukraine, Austria, and for Kosovo and Bosnia. And that's, of course, the first question I have. If you, as Montenegro, now support the continuous NATO enlargement of Kosovo and of Bosnia, first of all. And the second question is, because you say about economic development, I'm a long-term activist already for the independence of Montenegro. I was actually 20 years ago at the day of the referendum there. And I'm always arguing that your physical infrastructure must reflect your future in the European Union as well. Unfortunately, you spent over €1 billion to build a highway towards Serbia, which I always tend to call a hostile state, also to Montenegro, with its very, very negative attitude towards Ukraine and towards Montenegro, towards Kosovo, obviously. But you spent all your money to drive a highway through the mountains, while it would be much cheaper to build a highway towards Austria and actually towards Croatia.
It's Austria, just in that direction.
Just there's a little bit of a blockade, yeah. So I'm very much for the North-South highway, and I want the NATO allies, Macedonia, Albania, to be connected via Montenegro towards Trebinje and then towards NATO Dubrovnik. And it would be a wonderful way. It's actually much cheaper to build. And why not to set the priorities of your nation's budget and infrastructure in the direction of NATO EU future and not towards Serbia? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The first question was about Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina joining NATO, but Montenegro supports open door policy. So we work that all our neighbors will become once, we have good relations with all our neighbors when it comes to they're joining NATO or they're joining the EU. We will support in any case, but also they have to fulfill their own criteria. We are all again going back to this merit-based approach. It doesn't matter if it's NATO or EU, but when it comes to our own attitude towards it, we are supportive, of course. And when it comes to the highways, to continue your joke, but yes, it's actually way towards the Europe. And I mean, joke aside, Montenegro now in the pipeline many projects when it comes to the fast roads towards Macedonia, or actually towards Albania, towards our neighbors on the west. But of course, with Serbia is our neighbors with whom we have good relations with all of our region, and our priority, actually, foreign policy priority is good neighborly policy. So road towards Serbia is actually a road that would connect us to Austria in one point.
I would like to follow up on this point, because do you think, like, with this with a successful EU integration for the region, that would of course set a signal, but very specifically, do you think that it would also help to improve Serbia's path towards EU integration? Is Montenegro that country who can support Serbia best? We think about that. I mean, there was the hare in that analogy that the Commission did back in 2009. Now it's, I don't know, what, the tortoise or something else. But anyway, do you think that there is a positive possibility for a positive impact?
When there is possibility, actually, I'm sure that it's going to be positive impact not only to Serbia, but also for the other countries of the region. And with Serbia, you know that we have stable relations that are sometimes complex, burdened with different views on some issues. But Serbia is our neighbor with whom we cherish, and we actually, from both sides, we show the interest to further this relation. And EU agenda is something that brings us even closer. So once becoming a member state, yes, we would focus on helping our neighbors to become our partners within the EU. We are ready to share what others were sharing with us, our experience, our key, translated key, and these all technical things that in the moment seems like not so important, but actually crucial for some steps. It makes your life easier. What Croatia actually did for us in one moment when we started our negotiations. So yeah, I think that if we are moving forward, that would be positive signal to Serbia, but also for the others.
Yeah. Yes. So we have more questions. Klaus first, and then yeah.
Thank you. Ambassador Stanis, I think you do a great job in explaining your country in a credible way, and I wish you luck, you and your country, on this path. Same as for Albania, which is also quite advanced. We're living strange world, strange days. I hear you advocating the merit principle of the European Union. I was in charge of this at the Austrian Foreign Ministry. We kept on preaching that it has to be merit-based. It's just and fair. Do your job, you will be admitted. Now you have Ukraine on the table, and Sebastian quoted Politico saying, there is this idea of having Ukraine join next year. Chancellor Merz, he rebuked it and said, it's impossible. It always takes minimum couple of years, and everybody has to fulfill things. Nevertheless, these kind of things, these kind of ideas are somehow discussed in a credible way. On the same page, or in similar way, I see when I listen to the people in even academia in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they start to discard the European perspective at all. So we will never join, so let's forget it and find other ways forward. We have to move forward. If it was not a fake news, I heard Prime Minister Rama yesterday say, well, if there is a joining the European Union without veto rights, we're with it. We're going for it. We see Albanian troops now joining the Gaza troops in the framework of this. So that there is a lot of things moving. What the question would be: how far are these discussions in your country about Plan B? Because I mean, we all wish you well, but there is the ratification process, there is France, there is the Ukrainian issue on the table. There is not enthusiasm, not even in this country, frankly speaking, about enlargement as a principle. So we have to be realistic and think what other options are there. And final question as to the population, I noticed, especially in Serbia, people are honestly afraid of the effects of joining the European Union on the demographic aspects, because experience shows Croats, the Bulgarians, when they join, there is a wave of not the worst people leaving the country for older EU countries. Is that an issue, or are you in a way different because of the sun that shines on the beautiful shores of Montenegro?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah, we are aware. I mean, we are all aware. We are living the same reality, and we that there are many scenarios discussed when it comes to enlargement. But in this point, I think that this discussion would not, at least in our case, should not go any further for where we actually are in the moment, because discussing any other option than being a full-fledged member with all the rights would not be beneficial for anybody. For us, of course not, but also not for the EU, because it would make also division within the EU. You then, like in a short term, maybe some member states would advocate, yes, but we will protect us from someone veto some important decision. But long term, it would mean that you have countries of first and second road level or whatever, and then you have some countries lobbying for some issues through those countries that are having actually full rights. So who knows in which direction it can go, but it can never be beneficial for those countries who does not have full rights. And and for us, we are now following also one of the Austrian proposal, actually, when it comes to gradual integration. We are already partially present in some of the structures and some of the meetings. So we are already getting ready to overtake this role of someone who is actually decision maker. And in this moment, I wouldn't really be enthusiastic or even like look into the direction of second or any third scenario from where we are now, what we are advocating. And when it comes to the leaving the country or demographic changes once the country becomes the member state, I mean, once in the moment, like we are talking hypothetically about the 2028 and Montenegro becoming a member, we will have this, of course, different mechanism that would be protective towards the EU, because we will not be allowed as a members to immediately just leave Montenegro and be equal at the labor market or in any other market. There are mechanisms that were used also with other member states when they were joining, so it's also the same for Montenegro. And as you said, we have the beautiful sea, so I'm actually not leaving at the moment. But let's see.
I will come to you in a minute. I just need to ask a quick follow-up question, because I think it fits at this point. Because one crucial part, I also believe that I mean, it's always good to have a plan B, but probably in this case it's rather counterproductive than serving the purpose. But I see a situation arising that we will have a situation where there is a country ready for membership.
Mm-hmm.
But then the big question is going to be, are the EU members ready for what comes to them? Or phrased differently, I mean, one of the central themes that we are at IDM working on this year, and actually also are starting a project that will look at the 11 most EU enlargement skeptic EU member countries.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing them together. We're bringing them, amongst others, to Montenegro to discuss how to better communicate benefits to the EU member societies, to get them ready to accept a new member, because we see that there can be a scenario that is potentially catastrophic when we have a situation where the enlargement process, the negotiations are successful, concluded. By the way, the UK took only 12 months to negotiate. Austria was 15 months. So there is a possibility to do that quickly. What takes longer is then maybe the ratification process. Hopefully, it will nevertheless be concluded. But what would you communicate to those that we are trying to engage with, so that they can better communicate it to the EU members?
Yeah, I mean, in that to this question, I would go back to the beginning of our discussion and what actually Montenegro can bring to the citizens of EU: stability, security, economic benefits in the scope that Montenegro can offer, and also a good message forward towards the region and towards the like to keep this enlargement policy alive. But also, if you say if the EU will be ready or not ready, if you're referring to the internal reform of the EU, and I don't know if that was actually.
No, I don't think that will be necessary. I'm more afraid of that we will have. I mean, Klaus mentioned France. Yeah? If there's a referendum and then there is a decision like this, or there are some certain elections in EU member countries in the meantime, in the ratification process, that would change the composition of governments. Yeah? Because I could see a situation where parties are campaigning with vote for us and we will prevent EU enlargement.
Yeah, but then that is also our communication, let's say, strategy, but we need to bring Montenegro closer to the EU citizens. Like what I hear sometimes is, yes, people are discussing enlargement and like general population discussing enlargement and have any doubt, well, have opinion on Ukraine joining, Moldova joining, Serbia joining, but actually have no opinion sometimes on Montenegro, because Montenegro was never mentioned as a story in any context. Only, you sometimes, I'm not saying that you always mention those who are having problems. I don't want to you to make a conclusion and this away from what I said. But sometimes when something is a success story, it's not mentioned enough because everything going smoothly, so it's not part of discussion. And then what we need to do, actually, we need to bring this success story more visible. We have to show what Montenegro can offer, but not only in the way what I said, like in this 4 segments, but also what it can bring to ordinary citizen. It's a country when they can go freely for tourism, when they can go freely for investment, when they can go freely with less tax paying, because we have the same actually system and the same taxes for foreign companies and for domestic companies. So these are some benefits that once we join the EU, will be like a shared policies and shared benefits. So
I think this is a very good point, because I also have the feeling we are not discussing enough all the real success stories and the benefits. I mean, we've done countless enlargement rounds. Most of them were geopolitical.
Yes.
Most of them were stabilizing democracy and not for economic reasons primarily. Yes. But we are not talking about this amongst each other. I believe the candidate countries are very well aware of that, but the EU member countries tend to forget. Some of them tend to forget that they have been candidates, including Austria.
And you're saying about the public opinion, and yes, that's actually where we should push harder. Yeah. We should actually familiarize ordinary people with candidates country, like what they are, what they present, not just the name Montenegro or like very technical information, 33 chapters, 1 intergovernmental conference, and all these things that we are mentioning, because yes, for us from this branch and in these circles where we are discussing it, it's an important fact. But for ordinary citizen, it's more important what can he see, what he can see, what he can feel, what he can actually have as a benefit as a citizen of it.
So you've been very patient.
Yes.
I've been ambassador to Montenegro since till 1.5 years ago. That was basically the observations I wanted to make. I mean, I've met, we think of the French or the Spanish people or even the Dutch people as being quite erudite, but I've met people from those countries who didn't know that German was the language in Austria. So basically, if you go further east, you had to deduct that the knowledge is even less widespread. And it's basically something like an information campaign, but that would not, that's very much to live for Montenegro alone and for these countries. I think there needs to be much more of a strategy with the EU if it wants to survive. And I think the survival strategy, enlargement of the first order, the Balkans have been the sort of underbelly for Europe for a long time. 30 years ago, they dissolved in war. So I think there are so many arguments to be more interested, to know more about the region, and to also for the EU to break its own rules. We live in a world, I mean, it's not a EU event today, but we live in a world where everybody breaks the other rules formulated by others. But so the EU is all the more capable, hopefully, to break its own rules and fast track certain things which seem impossible nowadays. And one of the things which have to accompany the process is naturally the popular mood, the popular will to enlarge. And I think there needs to be more of an information offensive.
Okay, so more question, just a statement?
Just a statement.
Thank you. Then maybe there is a question.
My name is Anna Maria Christoph. I graduated from the College of Europe on EU integration in the Western Balkans. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm doing currently a doctorate at the University of Vienna. So I do have actually like 3 aspects of the question. So the first one, you're posted as a Montenegrin ambassador to the Republic of Austria. So my question is, how does Austria help in this path towards the EU? And as an ambassador here in Austria, is it can it help for the integration of your country? I know Austria helps diplomatically to push forward this candidature, but maybe you have like some other aspects and concrete examples of this relationship and of your posting here. Furthermore, I have another question. There was like a new visa agreement with some countries in Central Asia, if I'm not mistaken, that are not exactly aligned with EU visa policy. So may this be like an incident or like a little bit slowing down the fast process you're looking forward to? And the last thing was, I think one of the chapters that they're not closed also now in the last round also included corruption and these aspects. And so I wanted to ask what is done to tackle this as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So when it comes to Austria, as I mentioned before, but to repeat again, Austria is one of the greatest supporters of the enlargement process, especially when it comes to the Western Balkans. And also Austria is one of the countries that pursue for the merit-based approach and no dual or any other 2 or more tracks approach towards the enlargement. Austria is very, I have to mention this diplomatic and political segment because it's important, and in this specific moment is really important. What Austria is doing, the Austria organized actually the Group of Friends of Western Balkans a couple of years ago, and always bringing this topic of enlargement together with the Group of Friends on the top of the agenda of many meetings in Brussels. Austria was behind this proposal of gradual integration approach, which we also support because it would help Montenegro and other countries to be present in many settings, not only meetings of the institutions, but different settings that would, let's say, prepare our administration for what it comes. Yes, in this moment, we are not decision makers, but still in some informal settings, we can participate participate, and we can see what we can expect in the further steps. When it comes to the, and of course, there are so many segments of our cooperation with Austria, because we are sharing so many ties with Austria historically as well and culturally. And Austria is very interested in the region, one of the biggest investors in the region, also in Montenegro. So one of the 10 investors actually in Montenegro. So these ties are also bringing Austria closer to the region. When it comes to the visa policy, yes, it's one of the issues that is part of the negotiation process. Once we are approaching to the date of accession, which means that gradually we align our visa policy with EU visa policy. It's a process that takes time, and also it's always assessed based on all, of course, our own economic interests to the moment when we join the EU. So by the moment we are there, this chapter will be closed, and all the visa-free, let's say, arrangement will be aligned fully with the EU visa regime. And when it comes to 23 and 24, which are focused on rule of law, which also include corruption and other segments, yes, it's one of the most demanding, well, actually two of the most demanding chapters. Why? Because they are so comprehensive. They also include overall administration approach that includes many segments of society to get involved. And also, it requires legal adjustment to the EU acquis. We have, well, in this segment, we have made a progress. We are making constant progress. We are the first country that get this interim benchmark assessment report, IBAR. So it was one of the signs. Yes, you in this moment you did your job, so you can proceed by the end of the process. Actually, our parliament will in this year have like constant sessions, so we need in a short time to adjust all the legal segments with the European acquis in these areas, which means by the September and October our laws should be fully aligned with the acquis in this area. And when it comes to some segments of these chapters, not only government is actually the one that has to do the job, and not only government is in charge for the implementation. So this is a work in progress. We have to be aware that we are a small country, which means that also small administration that should deliver also the same amount of tasks that should be delivered from the countries with much more capacities. But these chapters are prerequisite for the becoming a member. So when we say that we will be ready by the end of this year, our expectation is to close these chapters too. So.
Thank you very much. But my next question would actually have been which chapter you believe would be probably an obvious answer, but so you would say 23, 24 is the most challenging chapters. If yes, 27 is done. Yeah, absolutely.
These three maybe like from different. Yeah.
But I mean, we don't want to talk about Plan B. We don't want to talk about implications anymore, what it would have if that derails. But I still would also be interested. I mean, it's an ambitious goal, and you know, in last December there were also some last-minute hiccups when it came to the provisionally closing of some chapters. Let's say it's December 2026, and there are some hiccups from wherever, doesn't matter, that derails it, not completely, but just postpones it maybe for a couple of months. How crucial would that be that this goal, these benchmarks are not met? Do you think that this would have an impact, or is that you need to set ambitious goals, but you need also be some sort of flexible because there are some factors that you simply can't influence.
I mean, of course, always there are some factors that you cannot influence, but and of course, when it comes to the closing of chapters, it's in the same time technical and political process. So you do your technical part, but when it comes to politics, there are some countries sometimes interested more or less in some chapters, so they want to discuss some segments of it, maybe in more details. Let's say that way. But what is our sense at this, like the whole administration is actually working really diligently on setting, we set this goal and now we have to fulfill our own homework, which is almost done because almost all the chapters are internally ready. So like we should follow, and we already have this agenda already discussed with, already set together with the European Commission, like the timeline. So we expect that everything is done by the end of this year. But if there is something that would affect prolongation, or in any case, if you said a couple of months, but if 2028 is still the year when we become the member states, then it's something that we can maybe accept as a
yeah. In a second, I need to ask a follow-up question in a more positive framing. So it's 2028 now. No, I'm saying, so we think now we live in a different reality where we are in 2028.
Yes.
Already. Montenegro is the 28th member state of the European Union. What will be different to for the Montenegrins, and what will they notice will have changed by now because Montenegro is the 28th?
They would know that moment, like they wake up that morning, they would know that the goal is reachable. Now we are a member of the EU, which means, yes, in a very near future, we can feel the benefits. Because, of course, not on the first day. You're going to sleep after this celebration, after the night before. But still, I mean, the citizens will know that in a couple of years, yes, you know, the things will move forward because, you know, after the last, after the 2004, actually, in this cycle of enlargement, 75 million people enter the EU, 10 member states. And by the year 2019, the GDP of all these member states almost doubled. But statistics also said that countries that were already within the EU, their GDP also rise. So it did not have any slowing effect to the member states that were already in, but it had really a boost for those countries that entered. So that is something that we can look forward to. And our citizens can look forward to the more opportunities when it comes to the trade, when it comes to the education, when it comes to the travels, when it comes to whatever. So from that moment, they will know, yes, that's something that the promise is fulfilled from both sides, from Montenegro, but also from the EU, who was promising that once you are ready, you come in.
Thank you. Good, don't bring the mood down now. Okay, please.
Because I was part of this business delegation of Minister Edstadler and Minister Kocher. I think it was 24.
Yes.
It was really a wonderful event, and there was a lot of talk about future economic affairs and investment. And in the countries, Austria was really supporting for enlargement. For example, Romania, Bulgaria, Macedonia, and Albania. There was a massive investment of the Austrian state industry in the energy sector, especially, for example, OMV Petrom, one of our biggest foreign investments, but also in Macedonia, the whole energy distribution system with EVN, Verbund investing in Romania and in Albania. So this is what basically the Austrian state can really do if they love a country and they want to mobilize the resources. Of course, they say that's always independent, But Dr. Busek, whose this speech is today, the event is nominated, has always lobbied very hard for the Austrian state industry to really go and invest in these countries. In Montenegro, due to historic reasons, because it's a relatively young country, unfortunately, the Austrian state energy sector has not engaged in any major form. But you have wonderful lakes, you have wonderful rivers, you have wonderful wind opportunities, wonderful solar opportunities.
Yeah.
Why not during this initiative when the chancellor was now in Montenegro and he seemingly, what I heard, came very enthusiastically back from this wonderful country, which is well deserved. So he was less optimistic from his visit in Serbia, by the way, I was told. But nevertheless, so the question is, can Austria do something concrete? And I'm always very clear and spoken, because one thing is to tweet nicely that you support something, and maybe then in reality vote a little bit less enthusiastically in the EU Council and in the COREPER, which Austria also does from time to time, unfortunately, when it comes to EU enlargement. But the thing is to make concrete investments, which Austria has done, could do again in Montenegro in the sector of energy, and to somehow make a visible and strong and really substantial investment in your beautiful nation.
No, thank you so much. And the shortest answer to your question would be yes. But I will elaborate a little bit. Yes, during the visit of Chancellor to Montenegro, our two, like our Prime Minister and Chancellor, they signed even the one document that both countries actually agreed that we will boost our economic cooperation, and that we make like, let's say that we make a plan in which area we would further our cooperation. But areas where we see potential that Austrian companies can invest is actually energy sector, waste management that the ambassador mentioned before. These green, let's say, area, green energy, where we are working hard, that we are, but Austria is already present actually in Montenegro in different settings, let's say, but there is always a space for improvement. And we are now actually trying to bring Austrian investors, but especially in these areas when it comes to the energy, when it comes to the infrastructure, because it's also something that we are put in our reform agenda as a must, as a priority. And also when it comes to some part of obligations that we have to fulfill from the Chapter 27. So we need more investments to boost these areas. So.
Thank you. Last chance for questions, also online. It's not that, so, okay, but really, yeah, no downers. I don't have an upper question, so no downers, Günther.
There's a wonderful defense alliance between Croatia, Albania, and Kosovo formed now, which I really totally approve, and it's wonderful. But unfortunately, Montenegro has not decided to join this great Croatian initiative. And it would be maybe more question, why not? And will you consider to join the Croatian, Albanian, Kosovo Defense Alliance?
I will leave you without answer on this because I'm not familiar with details of this alliance. So, yeah.
Good. Then I have one last question that you hopefully have an answer to, but a very short one.
Okay.
I like to close up discussions with short answers, if that's possible. I would like to know one thing that we should know as EU citizens about Montenegro that will help us to understand better why this enlargement is so good.
One thing.
One thing.
Oh, but we said so many.
Now we distill it.
Because we are already part of EU family, and we just need to get closer, and we will bring benefit to EU. Also, we are expecting benefit, but we will bring also benefit to the EU as already member of the EU.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. It has been a pleasure. I think a big round of applause. It has been a real conversation. I really appreciate that you took up the challenge to took a lot of questions from different people in the audience. That was fantastic. That
you.
I think gave us a really good picture of where we are standing here. I would like to conclude by thanking, of course, first of all, again, you and your embassy for the cooperation. I would like to thank the Diplomatic Academy, the Vienna School for International Studies, for the cooperation in this event. I'd like to thank the members of the IDM board, and here Klaus Wölfer, for the introductory words to this event. But of course, also especially my team at IDM who have prepared that, Malvina Talek, then Peter Techet, and especially today that the last woman standing supporting us, Sophia Beiter. Thank you very much. Big round of applause for smoothly running the technical challenges. So this is also available afterwards on our YouTube channel. If you haven't done so, follow IDM at IDM Vienna on our social media channels. Look and subscribe to our newsletter. Support the IDM with what you can. And in 2028, when Montenegro is the 28th member state, the IDM will turn 75 years old. I think we have a lot of possibilities to celebrate. That would be the goal. Help us get there, support us, think about us. Once again, thank you very much, Madam
Thank you.
Ambassador. Until next time.
Again.